Hello. And hopefully everybody's doing well this holiday weekend. I hope whatever you tend to believe in, that it went well for you. And if you didn't, I still hope it went well for you. And can you believe we're into April? Uh, I know I'm up on time yet because it seems to be going so very fast. It's just really ridiculous. I believe I lost March, but that's beside the point. Okay, what I've got a quote for today. I found one from that I got a long time ago, really long time ago. I used to do these things, and when I taught in traditional classrooms, and I know I talked about quotes and put them on the board, and we started classes that way. And this one, my notes say I had it in 1996, so this goes way back. So some of the terms are going to be ancient because they're no longer used these days, but that kind of explains where the quote's coming from to some degree. Anyway, this comes from Edwin Bliss. The pursuit of excellence is gratifying and healthy. The pursuit of perfection is frustrating, neurotic, and a terrible waste of time. Now, neurotic is no longer used again. That's the old fashioned word, so to speak, that hasn't been used in like 20 or 30 years, but that's beside the point. It still gets the point across that the pursuit of perfection is just really not worth it. Notice that perfection and excellence are not equivalent. You can be excellent at something, but you're not necessarily going to be perfect at it. About the only time I know that anybody would be perfect is when they have the Olympics and somebody gets a straight set of tens. And that doesn't happen often. And somebody else could still have a quibble about whether or not somebody did something right. It depends really on who's looking at it and the criteria they're using as to whether they're going to give you a 10 or a 9.6 or 9.9, isn't it? Because you could have two people look at one specific detail. I'm thinking right now of food. You could have one particular dish, and depending on what things somebody's looking at, they could say that it was a 10, they could say it was a 9.8, they could say it was a 3, because it's all going to depend on what particular things you're looking for. But you could still be excellent at any particular topic, but that would also, perfection would imply that you'd reach a point at which you no longer could change or improve. And I don't think there's much of anything in which you get to that point. And the other question is would you want to? Would you want to acquire a skill so good that you were static and could never improve? Because to some degree, that would also imply that somebody else could work harder and get better than you are. Technology would come up, new training techniques would come up. So if you got to a point that, like you're right here and you think, okay, that's it, I'm on the top, sooner or later somebody's going to come up and they're going to get there. And you're just no longer going to be perfect anymore. I think of housekeeping. People want to keep a perfect house. Why? Because it's going to get dirty next week. If you have children, there's no way you're going to be able to do that. So the idea of trying to be perfect on anything, I think, not only is a waste of time, I think it's impossible to achieve. Excellence, on the other hand, you can look to do something and do it really, really, really well. You can get a good grade on an assignment. You can get a good review from a supervisor. Somebody could say you did a really great thing, but then again, as I said earlier, somebody's going to come around and disagree. So excellence and perfection also are going to be, shall we say, in the minds of the beholders. But the time management issues, if you think about it, when you try and get something and you're trying to make it perfect, you work at it. There's something called the 80-20 rule, in which it goes something to the effect of 80% of your time is spent on 20% of the object. So the idea is that if you get to a certain point, let's just say for the sake of argument, a 98 on something, whatever it is, with 100 being the top score, you're going to spend most of your time on trying to improve that last 2%. When you think of all the other things that you could be doing instead of, as I tell my students all the time, they could be spending lots of time to be doing something to get it better over that 98%, but they could also be sleeping. They could be spending time with their children. They could be doing something else that they'd rather do. But if they're going to try and spend all their time being perfect, they're really taking time away from other objects and not getting anything done that they really want to do in all probability. Besides, if you be perfect, what happens to the other people who aren't perfect? I mean, think about it. If you know somebody who's perfect, what's your particular attitude toward that? You're usually feeling that they're usually too good or something like that. You might be envious. You might not like them. You might think there's going to be some degree of comparison. But usually in my experience anyway, there's some degree of, if I could use the word animosity or distaste or dislike, because somebody gets to be perfect. And do you want to be that perfect person that everybody says, well, I'm never going to be like that? To some degree, you're going to be much more likable if you're not perfect, because basically nobody else is. None of us are perfect. So why try to get to a point that you're not going to be able to achieve anyway, especially if you're spending a lot of time doing it? And that's where bliss is coming from, I believe, because you're just getting overly wrapped up in trying to achieve something that you're probably not going to be able to do. And besides, what's the point? If you have to do something, let me back up. If there's a task that you need to do that has to be done perfectly, that means once you do it, the next time you do it is going to have to be done perfectly. Or maybe you're not going to do the same task. You do a task, and then you're going to need to do a similar task. And then everybody, including you, are going to expect you to do it perfectly again. You set up a reputation, and therefore that you get stressed out because you're going to be expected to do it really, really well all the time, each and every time. And is that really what you want? Now, for those of you who are parents, for those of you who are managers and team leaders, or you've got a group that are following you, is this what you want to emulate for the people below you? Is for parents, is this what you want to teach your children? You want to teach your children that they have to be perfect in everything they do, that they can never mess up? I don't think so, because you're putting a load of stress on them that really is not necessary. If you're a manager, are you going to try and teach your people that everything has got to be perfect? Again, that puts stress on everybody. And what's to be accomplished, and what's the benefit of all of that stress of trying to be perfect when it's really not necessary in the first place? If you're working for somebody who will only accept perfection, you might want to get another job. That's just not, it's going to be a stressful. If you're trying to get a job for somebody who just wants perfection, trust me, you're looking for a lot of stress, and you have to think about really whether you want to do it or not. So I hope that this has given you some ideas to think about as far as the concept of perfection. Now think in terms of excellence, which is related, but it's not the same thing. You can be excellent, but that implies you keep growing and you keep developing. I think that would be a better goal, excuse me, than to think in terms of perfection. I hope so. I hope this was something to give you. I get to the end and then my mind goes faster than my mouth. Sorry about that. I hope this has given you something to think about, and I hope it's worthwhile you're thinking about. And again, if you enjoyed it, let me know, because I'd like to know whether or not you've got something. As far as I know, I'm just, talking to a blank wall here or a computer screen. If you know anybody that things will be helpful, please share it with them and just let me know. And if you've got a quote, please pass on something that you'd like me to discuss. I'd really appreciate it. So hope you have a good week and a good weekend, and we'll see what we have to say next week. Bye.